Welcome again to the All the Way 2 podcast. Today's guest is Ferdia Donohue, and he is very deserving of the title of Man God as well as Ultimate Triathlete. He is a man currently in training for the triple Ironman. He completed the double Ironman last year and has already completed a single Ironman also. In our conversation, we spoke about everything from his training to his mindset to his experience in school to some of his idols, not to mention his colourful experience with ice cream. It's an absolute pleasure to have Ferdia on, and I look forward to speaking to him again in the future. Make sure to follow him on Instagram and see how he gets on with his triple Ironman and the training for all his future endeavours. And now, without further ado, I give you Ferdia Donohue.
So I'll preface the episode with maybe a little introduction to yourself and maybe links to like your the fundraise you've done in the past and your profile on Instagram and stuff, so that people have an insight into who you are and get to know who you are. But regardless of how I introduce you, I'd like you to introduce yourself to me in your own words.
So my name's Ferdia. I am 27 years old from Cavan, and I work in sales at the moment. I've worked as a teacher for 4 years, and I studied sports science and health in college. So a bit of a roundabout to ending up in sales. And the most interesting thing about me probably is that I train and compete in ultra triathlons. So last August I'd done a double Ironman, is what it's called, and that took me 33 hours, and I'm training for a triple Ironman at the moment. So that's an extra 33% in July, and that's usually what people have to stop me for and get me. That gets people asking more questions.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Reels them in.
Yeah, and with that in mind, in preparation for chatting to you today, I was listening to my brother's podcast with you off the lead, and I'll provide a link to that too. And in it, you're leading up to the double Ironman, and you're talking about kind of you've done the single, the double's coming up, and the train you're going to do for that, and that like how much more difficult this is going to be in the first one, and no doubt before your first Ironman, there would have been similar reports of like, oh yeah, I've done the marathon now, but geez, the single Ironman is going to be hard. So you definitely up the ante, like as time has passed. Like I didn't know you were training for the triple, so obviously there's been some developments over the past year since you successfully completed the double Ironman. But with that in mind, I don't want to, I suppose, reiterate a lot of what you said on a lot of what Fran was asking and what you said on the podcast with Fran. But there was a couple of things that came up that I would love to ask you about. And I suppose first thing that springs to mind, how did the double Ironman go?
The cut-off time was 36 hours, and I finished it in 33 hours 15 minutes. So it was close enough to cut off, which I knew I'd be, but just over the moon to finish it. And the whole race pretty much went to plan. I had a really good coach who had predicted that I'd finish in around 33 hours, which is exactly what I'd done. And I went through the whole race strategy with him, nutrition and everything. And what was interesting about the race itself was that I wasn't actually, it was one of the least nervous I've been before the start of any race, even though it was my biggest race and something I had dreamt of for like 5-6 years. And I think that was just down to the preparation. I prepared so well for it, better than any other race. And then the whole race just went so close to plan as it could, which is unusual for an ultra triathlon and a race of that length. Up until towards the very end of the race, I made a ridiculous decision looking back, but sure, that's hindsight. To halfway through the run, I swapped my socks.
Okay.
And so I did. You know those? Have you ever gone to Jump Zone or Jump Box or any of them places? Those trampoline places.
I actually haven't, but I have an idea of what they are. Yeah, I know what they are.
They give you those special socks, and they've got a gel at the bottom of it.
Okay.
You can't use your shoes off the trampoline. Yeah. So you go around these special socks, and there's like soft gel on them and padding. And I just had them over with me, and I had like several pairs of socks. And then I just picked them up. I was like, oh sure, with my crew there, my friend and my brother, and I was like, oh sure, put these on. They were like, oh yeah, they might be good, they'll have softer gel on them. and because of just that weird gel that was in the socks or whatever, it just started killing the bottom of my feet. And after about an hour running in them, my feet, the soles of my feet, every time I hit the ground was just like it's smashed against concrete. You're just really sore. Yeah, so I had to stop. My brother's a physio, luckily enough. So, and he had this special ointment with him, like painkiller ointment that he was rubbing in the bottom of my feet. So I'd have to stop every like hour and a half or so. And he'd rub that in. And then again, because you're just so tired, this is like over 24 hours into racing. Because you're just so physically tired, and my crew was really tired as well. It took us a while to cop on that it must have been the socks that was doing it.
Okay.
So we didn't even take off the socks. We didn't even change the socks till a while after that. And it helped a bit when the socks were changed, but the damage was kind of done. So that made it physically really tough towards the end of the race.
Yeah.
But aside from that, everything kind of went to plan, and I got finished in the time I was.
That you wanted. Yeah, because I remember you saying 36 hours the cut-off, but that you're expecting to do it in between 32 and 34 inch. You're right smack bang in the middle of your expected time, everything going according to plan. So obviously you had planned to succeed, and you had those preparations fucking nicely in place. And I think it's mad, the biggest athletic undertaking you had ever signed up to, and you're the most confident going in. It kind of, I suppose, it goes to show the kind of preparation you did and the confidence you had. And like I've never done any sort of elite athletic achievements, like, or kind of ultimate like athletic achievements like that. You know, played a bit of football and do a bit of jiu-jitsu now and stuff, and I love them, but nothing to the scope that you're doing. So I'd be curious to know what's kind of going through your mind through that arduous, grueling task of, you know, running, cycling, and swimming for 36 hours. Like, what is your mind quiet, or is it racing, or are you thinking, or, you know, are you like a robot, or what's going on upstairs? Like,
yeah, that's a good question. And for what was interesting enough about this, the race itself meant, because I did loads of really long training sessions, like up to 7 or 8 hours in the bike, or even 12 hours in the bike. And the race itself, what was going through my head and my mindset was very different than the long training sessions I had, in terms of that it was a lot less boring, first of all, because it was like, one of the biggest challenges with training is, especially when you've got like an 8-hour cycle, and like some of them, I did a couple of them, for example, through the middle of the night, started at midnight through to 7 or 8 in the morning to practice dealing with sleep deprivation. And I just do laps at Phoenix Park, because the race itself is going to be laps. I just do laps at Phoenix Park. And the biggest challenge between doing something like that is just plain and simple. It sounds obvious, but it's 100% true. Just dealing with the boredom of it. You're bored half an hour in, and you have 7.5 hours left, and just that whole, it's just a whole grind. You just have to be so persistent. It's the whole mental grind as to just keeping going and not giving up, and it's just such a mental challenge for that way. The race itself, the boredom level was so much less, and I think that was because it was the actual race. I finally got into the race itself, the actual race, and there's other athletes around me the whole time, because there was lots of laps and the laps were short. If it was 2 big laps of 180k, I wouldn't have seen the other athletes, but because it was a 4k loop in 90 laps, you're around the other athletes the whole time. The whole excitement of it was there for the race itself. So I didn't even for the, as long as it was never really bored at all during it. But to come back closer to your question, it's a lot of what was going through my mind was tactics of the race, and like counting my laps, being like, especially at the beginning. So for the swim, I was like, right, after 6 laps, I'll take half a banana. I'll get out of the lake, take half a banana. So you're kind of counting 2, 3, 4, and then you're like, right now I'm getting to 6. That was a lot of it. But there's also like, that's, you're not going to think tactics for 33 hours. So there was other stuff you'd be thinking about everything and anything, kind of.
yeah.
There was definitely a lot of pride there on my own behalf, being like, I finally made it, and I've now finished the swim, I'm onto the bike. A lot of pride in that. And you think back on your training sessions too, because probably the single best bit of advice I've gotten from other ultra triathletes who were doing it is that during those long, tough training sessions, visualize obstacles in the race and visualize what the race will be like, to like a deep level, like visualize your crew being there supporting you, the temperature, how cold it will be, try and like feel yourself being cold and early at different parts of the race. And so when I was doing the race itself, it was kind of like I was remembering those times as visualizing the race, and it was kind of similar to how the race was panning out itself. So a bit of that was going on. You also think just the most random thoughts then on top of it, because it's just so long, like just random stuff would be going in about like at the time I was unemployed, and it was after I came back from Dubai. I'd finished teaching Dubai, so it was a few months before I got work, and like you'd be thinking, alright, where like after this, where I put my CVs into, you'd be thinking about an argument you had with somebody a month, with just so much time that everything that goes in.
Yeah.
But that they were kind of fleeting moments. That stuff would come into you for 20 minutes or so. But I did a very good job. You kind of have to keep your focus on, control your mind, and like getting through the laps and laps of the bike, and then getting through the laps on the run and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's I was kept mentally focused. I did a better job of that than I thought I would for nearly the whole way throughout the race. And that came from just the training, kind of visualising beforehand in the trainings and stuff.
Daily.
But,
yeah, it's a couple of things come up there for myself. I'd be curious about when you mentioned that element of pride in yourself when you were there. Did that energise you, or did that? How was the pride useful, or was it harmful in those instances?
It was absolutely useful. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely. Because when I signed up to do the double, I listened to a lot of, as you probably do as well, because I know Fran does, Joe Rogan and his podcast. I came across a guy called David Goggins, and I had came across him before and listened to loads of his content, because he's an ultra athlete, and his mindset and how mentally strong he is just incredible. And one thing he said was, people have a thing of, I'd love to do this race someday, or someday in the future, and he's like, just go out and do it now before you're ready. Just jump into it and just go for it and do it. So then when I listened to that podcast that night, I am still working off the adrenaline, I booked the double. And at the time, at the time when I booked that double, like I just finished my first Ironman like a few months previously, and I hadn't trained since, and I wasn't that like bet the life out of me, that Ironman race. So like a double was so far away from my capabilities at the time of booking it. And I remember when I booked it, I said to myself, I was like, even if I train for this for 11 months, and even if the training goes well, because it's just such a difficult event, there's still less than a 50% chance of me finishing it. I probably put my chances then to finish about 30%.
Okay.
So I was like, but I made the decision, and I was like, I'm just going to give it everything for the next 11 months. So then when it came to the race day with that pride, I remember just thinking back to that, being like, I can't believe I thought my chances were that slim. I was just so proud of myself that I had the balls to still go for it and just commit to it.
Yeah.
And now the time has come, and I was just so confident doing it, because I was like, I knew by my training and stuff, I'm like, I think I'm working with my coach, I think I can make the cut-offs here. So a lot of the pride really came right back to when I entered it first, being like, I entered it. When I entered it, failure was a higher probability than success.
Yeah.
Which I've never really done that with anything before.
Okay.
I don't think many people do. Many people just only will commit to something when they think there's a high possible success.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of that pride came from, and then that just completely energized me, because it's like, now is the race itself. I've done all the hard work the last 11 months. It completely energized me then.
Yeah, deadly. So with that in mind, you strike me, the man in front of me strikes me as someone who's very confident. You know, having completed something like that, something so difficult, something that you thought the probability of failure was so high, and yet you still continue training to improve those chances for success, and you did succeed. So I'd be curious to know what's your confidence been like over the course of your life? Would you rate yourself as a confident person now, or is it something that you've had to train into you, much like your athleticism, much like your fitness levels? Like,
that's a good question again. I think with something like confidence, I think there's a mindset out there amongst everybody that confidence is something people either naturally have or don't. And I don't really think that's true. I think that's true maybe for like, it's a factor. It has to be a factor, obviously, with genetics and all, but it's such a small factor. And I think confidence really comes from what has happened and what you do with your life. Because I would have always been very confident. I was lucky all the way through school, and lucky with my family as well, that I had like a good family of great friends, that all through primary school I would have been confident. Then when I started secondary school, I found it rough, as probably a lot of people do, and I got picked on a bit in first year, so then my confidence went down a lot by the time I was starting second year. I was the lowest confidence I've ever been in my life. And then what I started doing even as early as that age, I just started looking up YouTube about how to improve confidence, and so much of that was just like how it's all in your own head and how you perceive yourself as being confident, and by how you can just control it all yourself. It doesn't have to be what stuff happens today or what stuff happens this week as it is a factor on how confident you are. It's just how you control it yourself. And so then my confidence would have picked up throughout secondary school and throughout college, and I was always very confident. But interestingly, in the last 12 months, between training for this race and after finishing it especially, I've got my confidence is as high as it's ever been, especially like my self-confidence, my self-respect, I suppose, has been the highest it's ever been. Is really high. And I think that's comes from when you go after like a dream you have and you just work so hard at it and you just go after it with such discipline, and then you finally achieve it when the failure element was so high. That gives you such a high level of self-respect.
Yeah.
I think, which is what I have now from that. And interestingly, that's one of the reasons I signed up for the triple, because my self-respect and my own confidence was so high leading up to the race and the month or two after the race. But then when I finished the race, I didn't do anything for 4 or 5 months. I kind of stopped training. I was like, well, I've done the double, like I'm good now. But then because I kind of stopped training and I wasn't being disciplined with my life as I had been the previous 10 or 11 months, I felt it going just slightly, because it's not like if you do something like that stays. So then when I've signed up for this triple and I've started training again for the triple, and I'm slowly coming to the level of slowly getting that self-discipline back to what it was like last year, my self-respect is going as well. It's like as if there's correlation between the two.
Yeah.
It's coming back to where it was now again.
Yeah. So the two big factors in your confidence that strike me there, like from when you're kind of 13, 14, starting school, you lost your sense of agency, in that when you were in the new environment, your confidence took a big knock, and you seeked help through YouTube videos and stuff, which you got this helpful idea for yourself that, you know what, it's despite the shitty environment I find myself in now, that doesn't have to negatively affect me. That's not deterministic in how I'm going to feel. My confidence is something which I can own and I can control. So yeah, I suppose it sounds like you regained a lot of agency. Like in
that's the way you describe it there, Pat, is 100% actually.
Yeah, dead.
It's that I found out it's a bit of a eureka moment for me. And not even then, but looking back then, and from what I've learned since, it's just that like the outside factors that influence you, you can make the active decision that like I'm not going to let that affect me, or affect my confidence or any other parts of my life, because you can fully control that from within yourself, like from how you perceive everything.
Yeah. So like, so there was the kind of regaining that self of agency, and also you've gained a lot of self-respect over the last good few years.
Yeah.
So it's through both your training and your competence, and I can only imagine that that's been very, very helpful for, so it was your character and your resilience and your self-esteem and everything. And you're interested in, I suppose, motivation videos on YouTube, and you're interested in kind of, you know, framing these things, framing your motivations from a particular perspective, kind of gives me, or suggests to me, that you're quite a kind of a thoughtful and philosophical person. So would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And so what have been the difficult aspects of being a philosophical and thoughtful person, and what have been like the beneficial aspects? So what aspects of your life have you found very hard because of your thinking nature? What ideas have you found helpful? What has your thoughtful nature help? How has that improved? How is that major quality of life as good as it is now?
I've never thought about that one before, Pat. You see, with me, to the first part of the question, how is me being a philosophically thinking person negatively affected my life? I think because when it's from the time I started being philosophical or thinking philosophically, I suppose, and now it's just been kind of improved my life. I've never thought about any negative aspects of it.
There doesn't have to be.
I don't even know if there is any, but there's definitely been a huge amount of positives. And that would be just from, because I would read a lot of books and listen to a lot of podcasts, both for motivation reasons and just for just because I have an interest in them as well. And from me having that philosophical thoughtfulness, I've just been open to the suggestions that they've been made, and they have definitely like improved my life. Like, for example, again with David Goggins and Jerry Duffy and a lot of people who have said this, that the most important conversation you'll ever have is one you have with yourself. And I'd never thought about that before in my life. And then, but because I was philosophical and open-minded, I just listened to it and I was like, oh, there could be on to something here. So I started changing the conversations I was having with myself, because everyone has those conversations going on, the little voices inside your head, you're not even aware of half the time. And that was it as well, I wasn't even aware of them. So then I was like, oh, I never even realised that. I never was really aware that, number one, that they were going on, and definitely number two, that I, again, could have full control of them. But of course you can, because, you know, it's you, they're your own thoughts. So like what happens, most people, they wake up in the morning, and I think it's just human nature that people are negative, and you start thinking of the bad things that happened yesterday, of all the stuff you have to do today and how much of a struggle it's going to be. So I started waking up, and I still try to do this, and I don't do it the whole time, but I try to make a concept to do it. Just changing that and being like, nah, it's like, hold on a minute, forget all those bad things that happened like last week and yesterday, and all these good things happened as well. And then instead of being like, oh, that's going to be so hard, coming out being like, right, let's attack this, let's get through it, let's do it. And that just simple switch in your mindset has just led to significant improvements in my life again.
Daily.
So there's been a huge amount of benefits from being philosophically minded.
Yeah.
For me, there definitely could be negatives to it too, but I haven't realised them, or I haven't thought about them.
I suppose the reason I ask is because I'd be similarly minded as well. I'd be very interested in philosophy, in consciousness, and in my own mind, and the conversations I have with myself. And funnily enough, it wasn't until a few years ago that I actually realised that other people had an inner monologue much like I do. I was probably fairly late finding it out, and I thought I was insane. I thought there was basically something wrong with me, until someone pointed out to me, no, like that's something that everybody has. Everybody has an inner monologue, and everyone kind of has these dualistic kind of conversations with themselves, and they speak in their mind when they're acting out things. And I was like, oh, that's a fucking relief for a start.
Yeah.
But I suppose because I never really talked about it, I never had the exposure to that idea. It was a cause for suffering. But for you, I think what's great from your perspective, you have a helpful attitude towards suppose, towards philosophy, and that you're willing to kind of take on and accept the good ideas from other people, and there seem to be some important role models, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like idols in your life. Like you mentioned David Goggins, and you mentioned Jerry Duffy, and another person that came up in your conversation with Fran was James Lawrence. You know, these really motivational people that have done such wonderful things. And like motivational people, it doesn't fucking cover it. It's kind of cliche, like, you know, they might make some money off giving speeches or whatever, but you know, they have accomplished so much in their lives, and that is inspirational, and they can communicate that to other people. And you know, you've been able to assimilate some of those ideas, and it's informed your confidence today. You know, looking back, and you listen to David Goggins one day, and that night you were booked into a double Ironman. You know, so I think you had a willingness to appreciate like the wisdom and the power of other people's ideas, and kind of bring them on, which can be hard to do at times, you know, because if you want to live your own life, or if you're leading your own path, like, so that's fucking deadly. But with that in mind, keeping those characters in mind, when you continue to pursue your triple Ironman now upcoming, do you want to somewhat emulate what these characters have been for you, so you can be that for other people, or is there a different motivation? Does that even cross your mind?
That's 100% it. Actually, you're picking me up well, because you've just hit a couple of things now right in the button, and that's one of them. Because when I first read about those guys, and when anybody reads about them, you're like, geez, they must be the outliers, the 1% that can do these incredible things, and everyone just so in awe of them. But they'll say themselves that it's not like that at all. It's just anyone can do this if you just apply the discipline and the hard work involved. So then I was just like, that's exactly what I want to be. I want to become like what they are now. And because I'm kind of in the middle of that process, I suppose, now I'm also kind of like listening to them, and their success stories have helped me so much. I'd love to be a person after like several years who's done loads of stuff as well, and is helping other people like me a couple of years ago first hearing about it, and helping them then myself as well.
Yeah,
just mirroring kind of what they're doing.
Yeah. So they've been so helpful and beneficial to your life. You'd like to be that helpful and beneficial to somebody else.
Absolutely,
you know?
yeah.
I love the idea that you know, you might perceive them as outliers, but they're fucking not. They say they're not. I'm just a normal chap, and look at what I'm doing. You know, I'm no outlier either. That's
absolutely that's so I'd be like a living example of that as well.
Yeah,
that, like, I was just, because as soon as you hear about them, anybody hears about them, they're just like, oh well, they're the outliers. But I can be like, well, I had that exact thought myself, and put it into practice.
And I'd be curious to know your own insight to this now, because there seems, from my perspective, to be a little bit of a contradiction in that. So you're a very, very confident person. You really have achieved fucking some serious athletic feats, which are impressive, not only to me, but to no doubt all your network who are familiar with what you've done. And you also have declared your intentions for what you'd like to do in the future, and you'd like to emulate what they've done. But when I look at you, let's say yourself online, you're quiet enough. You know, you don't have a blog, you don't have a personal page. You know, there's a coolness and a kind of a calmness and almost a kind of a reticence and quietness to you now. That you're not self-promoting in a sense. You're not making what others might consider the obvious steps in the direction of being like this kind of motivational speaker personality dude. Do you know?
Absolutely.
What is holding you back from that, or have you made a concerted decision to not do that?
That's a good question. Again, there's a few different reasons for that, I suppose. Des always gives out me for this as well, funny enough, because he's like, oh, the stuff you're doing, he's like, people do 5K and put up everywhere on Instagram. It's like, put up your stuff on Instagram and everything. Well, I have put up all the races on Instagram, but I don't put up any of the trainings or anything. And as I said, there's a few answers. One of the main reasons is being I hate social media.
Okay.
And I hate that I'm even on it. I feel like I should just delete it and let that be that. That's kind of one of the main ones. And then I hate, especially with Instagram, what it's become is everybody just puts up like their little perfect life, and it's like it's not good, I think, because when everyone else sees it, it's like it makes you feel like your own life's not perfect, and then it forces you to put, and then it's like a vicious cycle, because then you put up all your good bits, and that's probably what's on my page as well as all my good bits. And I just hate that it's like that, because like no one's life is perfect.
Yeah.
And then another reason would be as well that I feel like if I was to start promoting myself, it'd have to be a few years down the line after I do like more. That's one of the biggest reasons as well.
Okay.
If I get over the whole social media thing.
Okay.
Now I'm saying this and giving out of Instagram, which I, like everybody else, I spend from hours a week scrolling through the nothingness of it as well.
Yeah.
But that'd be one of the other reasons that if I were to do that, it'd be a few years down the line, maybe after I achieve more.
Yeah.
Or because I still feel like there's bits. I still feel like I have to improve a lot of parts of my own mindset. I have to become a lot stronger in some sense, mentally stronger, say, and have more wisdom, I suppose, before I start giving out loads of advice too.
Yeah. I think like.
You know, it's like I'm getting my advice from them, even though for all just to completely reiterate what they're doing.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
In some sense, I know other people have another opinion about that, being like,
Well, listen. First of all, you're here today, so you're able to do some kind of things to promote who you are and what you do, and I suppose take part in a cause that you care about, sharing important messages. But I think. Listen, I don't mean this as like an attack or anything. I'm not as hateful as our mutual friend and my mutual friend is. But like there's somewhat of a contradiction, and just might be something for you to think about and even retort against if you don't agree. In that there are things that you want to achieve, but there's certain kind of conflicting ideas in your mind that prevent you from doing that. So you don't like social media for all the reasons you outlined, and I despise it for those reasons too, because people put up their perfect lives. But I think in a sense it's funny and ironic that to me it sounds like you're waiting for perfection in your own life until you get to the point where you do share. So for instance, you're looking for the point where you have achieved more. You know, you haven't. It's not that you've only done the Ironman and the double Ironman, and it's not that you've only done a 24-hour cycle. It's not that you're only in training for the triple. Maybe I'll start doing this kind of thing when I've done the Deca. Then the Deca comes on. No, I want to do 50 in 50 days. And then that's when I can start to. There'll always be more, but also I think there's something really helpful to hear. I hope this is true to the listener. Something helpful about your own very current perspective now, and that's, listen, you said it yourself. You don't consider yourself wise. You consider yourself naive. There's so much you have to learn. There's so much more you have to achieve, and I think that can be helpful for people to hear. Because that makes you more relatable and more understandable. It makes you more kind of humble, and you have a bit of humility about you. You're not these kind of superstars who are on the Joe Rogan podcast. You're not this ultra cool dude, because that makes you seem more like an outlier. Whereas now, like I love having heard about you from Des, and from hearing the podcast with Fran, and from chatting to you now, I can see that progression. And it makes you more, I suppose, more human and relatable, being able to follow you along the way, and to know that you are normal, and there's lots of, like you're saying to me now, and I believe it, like, that you have so much wisdom you want to acquire, but that in itself is a wise thing to say. Like you'll never stop acquiring new knowledge. Like, do you know what I mean? Like the fucking a sure sign of somebody who isn't a sage is if they fucking tell you they're a wise cunt. Do you know? That's the
that's a good point.
you know, so something for you to think about yourself. Like you know, you do Ferdia at fucking 27 at 27 with the things you've achieved has something beneficial to add to people and beneficial to tell people, and you know, it's all right to share the lessons that you've learned from other people, sharing them wider. You know, that's not betraying the ideas themselves. They don't have to be totally original. You know, you're saying what's worked for you, and you know, you don't seem like a fucking fraudulent prick who's gonna claim all the David Goggins work for yourself, like, or Jerry Duffy's, you know. But that's just an aside. But focus came up earlier, and I was wondering, now you're in training for the triple Ironman. Kind of two-pronged question. Do you find yourself consumed by at present by this goal? Do you find yourself consumed by the triple Ironman? And I suppose if so, what are the advantages and what are the potential advantages and disadvantages of having that goal and being consumed by it? And tell me if you're not, of course.
What do you
Sorry, let me rephrase that, because it was fucking makes sense in my head, but fucking not to yours and probably nobody listening. So you mentioned that you're very focused on wanting to achieve a certain thing. So like when you had the double Ironman in mind, your focus was on this event.
Yeah.
You know, that was your goal for the next 6 months. So when I say, you know, being consumed by it, it's like it's framing your day, it's framing your week. You know, you're getting so many hours training done a week, and you know, your diet needs to improve your performance, and you need to get enough food in to train, and you're training for this double Ironman or for this triple Ironman. And do you find yourself very singularly focused when you have an upcoming event, or do you allow yourself to pursue, you know, like your career or your family life or your social life, or is it I'm Ferdia, the fucking triple Iron, I'm Ferdia, the elite or the ultimate triathlon, ultimate triathlete? What's the phrase? Are they called ultimate triathlete? Yeah, ultimate triathlete. Yeah. So I'm Ferdia, the ultimate triathlete, and this is what I'm doing for the next 6 months.
Yeah, I have to think about that one. I'm kind of going a little bit around about here, and funnily enough, to an extent, that would be what the goal would have been, training for the double, and even kind of again now for the triple. To an extent, the goal is nearly to be consumed by it, because it's like you could not miss any trainings, because at the moment I still probably miss a training. I've usually have 9-10 trains a week. I miss one, maybe even 2 a week and all. So nearly the goal is to become consumed by it, just to get more discipline with it. But at the moment I'm kind of not at all, because the odd time the lads be going out for pints and I'll go out with them and be like, I just have 2, and I'll still get up at 7 for my swim, and then I have 4 and I get up at 8:30 and it's time to go to work and I miss my swim.
Yeah.
So I don't get consumed by it, but I do to an extent get consumed by it. Definitely don't get fully consumed by it, but that's nearly what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, okay.
Not get consumed by it, but, you know, have more of a singular focus on it to make sure I don't start missing training and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Rather than just getting distracted or procrastinating with all that other stuff. Just to get rid of procrastination reasons, I suppose. It's like I should be more singularly focused on it.
Okay, yeah. Well, that in itself makes it more real. Do you know what I mean? I think it's practically it's a helpful goal to have when you're in training for something, but I think it's almost an impossible thing to attain, maybe, because you're always going to have other things in your life, do you know? And something that Cormac Noonan, the guest that I had on last night, something that he mentioned was how like he wrote a blog post about how your job title doesn't define you. So let's say for me, I work as a research assistant now, but if somebody was to ask me to introduce myself or something, and that was all the information I gave them, they're going to know virtually nothing about me, like, and who I am, and I think with that in mind, to say, oh, this is Ferdia, he's an ultimate triathlete, it barely, I suppose, I think it barely scratches the surface in a sense. Or how do you feel? How well does the phrase ultimate triathlete define your life? And what do you think it might miss? Like, if I was to introduce you to somebody who just walked into the room and I was like, "What's the story? This is my friend Ferdy. He's an ultimate triathlete." Would you? What do you think that isn't captured by that phrase when I introduce you as that?
That's a good one again. Making me think about scenarios I've never thought about before. That's so well done. See, again with that, because I'm so proud of myself for doing it, and because so many of my idols are ultra triathletes, I'd be delighted. Anybody introduces me as this is part of the ultra triathlete. I'd be like, you don't have to say anymore, but you're definitely missing some of the picture, like, because nobody's just that, like. If it's a question of what you introduce you as, you can't introduce anybody in one line. You'd have to get to know them first. So I'd be absolutely delighted if I was just introduced as that, but you're just missing. Well, like, you're not picking up on anybody's personality.
Yeah.
By describing them as that, you could be, two people could be an ultra. You get three people an ultra triathlete, and all of them are as different to each other as anybody else is.
Yeah.
So you're not getting any, like, their personality aspects from it.
Yeah.
But then it does capture, like, that some of their interests would be in endurance sport, and you're capturing you're getting an idea that you have good discipline and stuff like that as well. You're capturing some of the photo with it, is such a massive thing. But yeah, you're just missing. And that's through the person's personality you're missing.
Of course, yeah. You can be fucking sound and be an ultimate triathlete, and you can be an absolute cunt.
Yeah, and be an ultimate triathlete. Absolutely,
yeah. Okay.
Same in everything in life.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So one thing that came up when I was again looking into thinking about what you've done and how far removed it is from my experience. Like I said, I'm relatively into fitness and exercise, but in a whole, like, I'm at one end of the spectrum and you're at the other in terms of kind of intensity and goal setting and what you have achieved and what you wish to achieve in the future. So you've undergone much more physically arduous tasks than I have, both in an acute sense and over at little breaking points, no doubt, in your training and in your competition, but also in terms of the pure duration, 36 hours for the double Ironman. Like, what I was curious to know is what were the most important lessons that you learned over, let's say, the hardest physical task you did for yourself, and do you think they're applicable to people who don't exercise or who don't push themselves physically to the sense that people like yourself do? So first of all, first of all, what are the most important lessons what were the most important, like, eureka moments and lessons that you learned during those really physically arduous tasks?
Biggest one, there's three or four really big ones. I'd say the biggest one is that you can do so much more and you can go so much further than your own perceived limitations.
Okay.
You can go so much further than you think you can, and you're so far beyond, your capabilities are so far beyond what you would think, what for most people definitely what they think they are. The other one is that you are, again, you're completely, in nearly all aspects of your life, you're just completely in control. And that's like, if you control the controllables, that like for me, if I was falling asleep on the bike after like 24-25 hours cycling, just controllables are right. Just focus on the technique, focus on your form, just get to the next lap without falling asleep, take a caffeine tablet the next lap, and then just focus on lap number 2. They would be 2 off the bigs. I'm trying to think of the third one. Just how important a positive over a negative mindset is as well. It just changes everything, especially with ultra triathlons. If you go in with a negative attitude, a negative mindset into an ultra triathlon, you won't even make the start line. Because there's so many reasons. You can look at so many possible scenarios of why it won't work, why you'll fail, or even during training, you just be absolutely impossible to go near it. And if you meet other ultra triathletes, like when I met over in Lithuania, there's so many similarities, and they were such positive people, and just such people that are just so strong mentally, I suppose. For those reasons, because you just wouldn't be able to do it if you brought any negativity into it.
Yeah.
It's nearly as if you have to conserve your energy as well, and just put everything into the 30 hours of completing the race. And if you have any negativity going around there at all, you'll crumble.
Yeah.
They'd be the 3 biggest ones, definitely. You can go so much further than you think you can. Your positive mindset is so much more important than the negative one.
Yeah.
And what was the other one?
The second point of seeing, like, kind of being present, like, you know, doing each lap by lap.
Controllables, you can always be in control of it. Once you can't be in control of everything, but once you control the controllables, you're gonna get through whatever it is. Fine.
And so I think it seems somewhat self-evident that they're not only applicable to the ultimate athletes. You know, that's true for
that's
someone.
true for everything.
Yeah,
that's true for everything. Yeah.
So I think when you do no doubt succeed in your aspirations of being that kind of motivational person, you're not going to be talking to fucking rooms full of Iron men and Iron women. You're going to be talking to chubby fucks like me, and you're going to be talking to athletic people, and you're going to be talking to people, you know, starting out exercise or won't even be interested in looking at a gym. So I think it's cool to realise that the lessons you learned are not specific, not exercise specific. You know, that's cool. But with we'll start with the third one, the positive mindset. And there's an element, like, I suppose, because I'm not in your world, like I try and when I think of positive mindset in my world, and when I hear people advising it to me, or like proselytizing it to me, I'm kind of like, fuck off, like, positive mindset. To me it sounds cliche.
Yeah.
So I suppose what I wonder about yourself, is there an element of kind of faking it till you make it, like where you ignore the negative aspect of you ignore the negative thoughts, or do you have that honest positive, like, I want to do this, here I am, fucking go, or is it more nuanced than that? Like, because I feel like positive mindset surely can't cover it. Like, I'd love for you to delve deeper into that. Like, what does it mean to have a positive mindset?
That's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up so we can clarify that. Definitely don't mean like, oh yeah, this is great. It's raining, it's great, it's better than if it was fucking sunny. No, not like that at all. You're just being stupid doing that. But it's just, and definitely don't ignore the negatives. If you ignore the negatives, like for example at the race, if you fall and hit your knee and you're to ignore that, that's going to stop you, it's going to ruin your race, because you can't ignore it because it's there. You can't ignore the negatives at all. But one of the best bits of advice I ever got as well was that you can use the negatives as fuel. So any bit of adversity you face, and this is applicable to all life, any bit of adversity you face, it's gonna beat you down a little bit, and it's gonna make your life tougher. But you have the decision to let it beat you down, or to just flip it upside down and use it as fuel. this really bad thing happened to me, say it's an illness or something, this is going to cause more adversity to me, but I'm going to use this as fuel. This is going to be practice for me dealing with other obstacles in life, and I'm going to become so much stronger because of this. Look at all the people who don't have to deal with this. I'm going to use this now to become really, really strong. So, anytime you get the negatives, you can just flip it upside down and use this fuel.
Yeah.
Kind of, you're being positive in that side of things. You're not ignoring the negatives. Something bad happens, it is terrible, but you can flip it upside down. And like even in a race, if you're to, just to give an example of this in the race, if you're to fall off your bike, because I remember the winner of the race, a Swedish guy, he done it in under 24 hours, he smashed everyone. He fell off his bike, and talking to him after the race, he was just like, he said to me, he was just like, I said to myself, what if I can still win even if falling off my bike? So he's like, if I didn't fall off my bike, I'd have just won. But now I fall off my bike, smashed his shoulder, he was bleeding for half the race. He's like, what if I can be that person who can still win and fall off the bike? And he just says, it was such fuel for him.
Yeah.
It just made him smash out the one then after falling off his bike.
Yeah.
So you can flip the negatives into positives, definitely.
That's really interesting.
You're being positive in that side of things.
So
like you can always nearly flip everything. And it doesn't mean like you're happy about it, or it's not gonna make it. It's not going to beat you down. It is going to beat you down, but you can still make that decision. Like, well, fuck this. I'm still gonna fucking finish it. Do what I said I was going to do, or whatever.
Yeah, that's fucking 100 times more clear to me. Like, and I suppose just from my own perspective, positive mindset, it just doesn't cover it. It's so much more nuanced than that.
It's hard to put a name on it. Yeah, because a lot of people would think that too.
Yeah.
It's hard to put a name on it.
And I think what springs to my mind is I don't like being fucking wordy or esoteric about it, or fucking a bit fucking pretentious or something. But it sounds to me like it's a utilitarian perspective. You know, you're always looking for the utility in stuff. You're faced with this adversity, and rather than the kind of the more immediate animalistic reaction of like, oh, this is shit, for fuck's sake, crap, you're like, no, how can I make this shit situation, how can I turn this into my advantage? You're still addressing that it's shit, but you're like, I can fucking have this energize me now and motivate me to not just be a winner, but be the fucking winner who fell off his bike. How much fucking better is that? It reminds me of just to give another kind of anecdote of that perspective. There's a guy called Dominic Cruz. He's a UFC bantamweight fighter. He's a really interesting fighter, very philosophical guy. He's been absolutely plagued with injuries over the course of his career, and people kind of always having the conversation for one of the best bantamweights of all time in the UFC, and he recently got injured again, you know, fucking another major injury after already being out for maybe cumulatively something like 4 or 5 years, and now he's this other injury which is going to put him out for at least another year. And someone asked him, you know, do you think you can still be the greatest bantamweight of all time with all the injuries you've had? And his response, so fucking kind of awe-inspiring, was I will be the greatest bantamweight of all time because of my injuries.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that I fucking got injured and still competed at the highest level, that's what fucking makes me special. Do you know what? And I thought it was honest. It made perfect sense, but it wasn't denying his misfortune. Do you know? And he allowed that misfortune to empower his story. Do you know, like, and that's not to take a shit all over people who let the negative aspects of life really affect them, because I've been there. But I suppose when I have a more helpful frame of mind, I can say, listen, I've felt this way, or maybe I feel depressed. Yeah, sometimes I fucking get really anxious, or, you know, but that's,
you can use it as fuel. Just flip it.
You know, that's what motivates me to do this podcast, to do what I'm doing. You know, so I think it's informed your own perspective, and it goes back.
It's so unreal as well, because when you get that eureka moment, which I got 6 months, a year ago or so, I always kind of knew to an extent, but when I really got that eureka moment, you're just going to win. You're constantly going to win, because it's like nobody wants bad things to happen, and it's horrible. But when the bad things do happen, it's like, I'm just going to flip this upside down, use all that fuel, and go further again.
Yeah.
So it's like it's such a good way to look into the future, because it's just kind of like, you kind of, instead of saying like, why me, it's like, why not me? Something happened to me. Instead of saying why me, feeling sorry for yourself, right? Why not me? I'm the strong person who can deal with this.
Yeah, it's a deadly. I think
it's just a little flip in your mindset. It's a little switch, and it changes so much. Like,
it's a brilliant idea to kind of inform and fuel resilience as well. Like, you know, so that when shit comes up in the future, that you use it, and you just don't let it knock you down. I think we're belaboring. I'm fucking belaboring the point, but I think it's definitely an important one to make. That was number 3 of
we've
the
been
most
off on
important.
tangents.
No. We get back. Number 2, you talked about controlling the controllables.
Yeah.
And what sprung to my mind, wrongly or rightly, was my own practice in meditation. So I do a bit of meditating. I try and do it every day, guided meditation or my own meditation for 10 minutes or so, just where I try, I suppose, focus my own mind and control my mind. Like, my mind is a controllable, and I want to be able to control that. So I was wondering, have you any experience with meditation specifically?
I've made a few attempts, and I've, over the last 2 years, probably told myself I should start doing it, because I'm kind of aware of some of the benefits of it, and I've tried to. I just never got into the habit of doing it. That's not to say I don't. There is a desire to get into the habit of doing it, but I just have never nailed down the habit of doing it.
Yeah.
So I've tried different forms of meditation, and I just never went more than a week doing the same thing. Okay. So I haven't properly meditated properly, but it's something I would like to get into. I'd like to just get that habit into my life, doing something every day. But I don't, like, as of today and yesterday and this week. No,
that's all right. Yeah, but being the ultimate dude that you are, the ultimate guy that you are, have you heard of silent retreat? What silent retreat is? Silent retreat is basically like it's like the Ironman fucking event of meditation. So it's, you know, there are people who have gone on silent retreat for years, who basically take a vow of silence, and they try and basically meditate for years on end, like mad cunts. But there are options where you can go on silent retreat for, like, let's say 10 days or even months, like, and I'd be curious to know, when let's say I pitch to you, Ferdia, there's a month-long silent retreat in the fucking mountains of Cambodia, where we have this fucking ultimate guru looking after us and giving us instructions on what to do, but we have to take a vow of silence, and we're not allowed any books, we're not allowed any phones, we're not allowed anything. We are, all that exists is us, our teacher, and the environment we're in. When you think of that, what would you be interested in that, or would there be something that kind of makes you a bit fearful or anxious about it?
It would be something I would love to try out, something like that, definitely. As you said, just being the having an ultra mindset. But I'd love to try it, but I don't know if I could. I could imagine myself even a few hours in just going mad. That's probably the point, though, is to just last it out. But I just have a big interest in anything like that. I look at, even now that you're saying it, I'm probably gonna, when as soon as I get home, I'll start googling it and just try and find out more about it. And if it's something, I'm very much of a logical thinker. If it's something that 99% of people who do it and they swear by it, helping their lives, or just swear by the benefits of it, then I'd be the type who'd go for it then, based on that. But if it was mixed kind of reviews about it, and people are like, oh, it might work for one person, didn't work for another person, I don't know if I'd make all those sacrifices to do it then.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's kind of the way mine was very logical. I'm just like, well, has this?
What's the kind of
What's
the evidence based?
Yeah, what's the evidence? All of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, just considering like the 36 hour.
Something you've done or?
No, I haven't, but I do intend on doing it. And now I wouldn't do I wouldn't do a David Goggins on it and run. Do my first silent retreat be fucking 3 months long. I do maybe a 10-day one or something, or work up to that after maybe a weekend long one or something, because I don't want to be, metaphorically pissing blood with a failed kidney after a day in of my fucking
come back out at your hair and
like you can tighter it up, like, so I'd start so fucking nail down my practice each day and then do it. But yeah, absolutely. But I think kind of for similar reasons to why you'd be interested, or you were originally interested in doing the Ironman, because it's something that's so difficult, but instead of being traditionally or difficult in the traditional kind of physical sense, it's difficult in the emotional and mental sense, like, but it can, from the stuff that I've heard of different I suppose meditation teachers, so there's going to be a selection bias there. They've said it can be a very important and formative experience in your life, much like I'm sure you would reflect on the double Ironman, and much like you will reflect on the triple Ironman, which I definitely would be interested in it.
Yeah,
absolutely. So we've really touched on a lot of what I wanted to cover, but a couple of things before we do wrap up. So curious to know what your relationship with anxiety is like. Do you experience anxiety in your life, and what is it like coming up to, I suppose, big events, like, what were your anxiety levels when it came to, fucking abstract things like the fucking leaving cert or college exams, but then also perhaps maybe more relevant, coming up to your first Ironman and coming up to your double Ironman, like, do you have an anxious character, or is that something that isn't a concern in your daily life?
No, I've been extremely lucky in that I've never really experienced any type of anxiety. Even when coming up to big races, I'd never been as calm as I was when I described the double Ironman, but I get nervous to an extent, but I would never say anxiety's never really been something that's affected me. I've been lucky in that.
Brilliant.
That aspect, definitely.
Yeah, you've had the kind of confidence in the preparation, which was quite let down. And I thought that was so fucking cool. Like, for the double Ironman, you are the most confident you'd ever been, despite it being the biggest physical undertaking you were going to do. And before I ask my last question, did you come into our conversation with anything specific in mind that you'd like to talk about yourself, about your own emotional experiences and your own emotional well-being, or something that you would like to share with, the people, with the listener, be they people in your network or be they people that you don't know?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I came on, again, from what I said, is because so much what I've learned, particularly the last 2 years, has motivated me to pass on the good advice / good information as I put it into practice myself, and it's had such a positive impact on me. And I'm quoting David Goggins again, so if you look him up, if for any listeners, and one thing he said as well that I still try to do to this day, and I've been doing, and it's helped me so much, is that in life, it's not about trying to put yourself in a situation where things are easier for you, or you're making situations where things that are easier keep happening the whole time. It's about getting yourself mentally stronger. And he what he describes it as a really good description. He's like, when you want to do farm work, you have to build calluses on your hand, otherwise your hands are going to be soft and weak and they're going to get cuts and bruises and everything. So he's like, you have to just go outside and be lifting rocks and stones every day, doing loads of farm work to build up that callus on your hands. And he said you have to do the same thing with your brain. You have to build callus on your brain. So he says the way you do that is you do that by just doing things that are uncomfortable every day, whether it's exercise, whether it's studying for an exam, whether it's cleaning your house. Don't ever take the path of least resistance that's comfortable, and don't sit down and go to sleep, or take a lie in the morning, or watch Netflix all day. Constantly, every day, day after day, persistently start doing things that are uncomfortable, things that you hate to do, because that builds up your mental strength, and that builds the callus on your brain. Just when you build callus on your hands, so what that means is when you've got those calluses built on your brain, all the shitty things that happen in life, they don't go through and penetrate you. They have such a less effect on you because you're now so much mentally stronger, which I've been actively trying to do in the last year or so, and it has helped so much. Stuff that would normally have pissed me off, or that would normally have upset me, now it's to such a less extent because I'm just mentally stronger. Because if you go in and if your boss shouts at you at work and you spent a week up at 6 a.m. cycling in the lashing rain, and rather than just lying in bed every day, when he comes to shout at you, you're just kind of like, yeah, okay, and then that's it. Like, whereas if people who are more mentally weak, I suppose it'll ruin their whole day and their whole life. And you can build. Everyone can build that. It's not like a type person. Everyone can just build that, and you build that by. I keep referring this back to exercise. It doesn't even have to be exercise. It can be studying for an exam that you don't want to study for, cleaning your house when you want to watch Netflix. Just making those decisions every day.
And I think I'd like to refine what you said just a little bit, because I know you obviously have the best intentions, and that is a fucking deadly take home message, that visualization of building callus in your mind. I'd never heard that, but to a potential listener who might fall into that category of, your boss says something to you and it fucking knocks you down and makes you feel like shite. You're not mentally weak, but you don't have to be the way you are.
You're allowing it to.
Yeah, you can be more emotionally resilient, and that's something that you can train into yourself. By, to use your analogy, to use that metaphor, by building calluses in your mind. You have a sensitivity and a kind of an element of fragility, which is nothing to be ashamed of. But it is not deterministic of what your present or your future has to look like. People have the capacity to live better and more fulfilled lives, and that analogy you gave is just fantastic. And I think possibly the biggest take-home message for me from what you've been.
I'm glad you brought that up, but actually you just clarified that a bit further, because I don't want people to pick it up the wrong way, and you kind of touch on it. It's not that you become emotionless and it doesn't affect you, but it's that, like, it's still going to affect you and upset you maybe, but you can react in the right way. And you can just, because you're just more disciplined, so you can just still blast out your work for the rest of the day, rather than just kind of sitting in the corner and be like, oh Jesus, having to eat away at you. So no, I'm glad you clarified that. I don't want.
Of course, and like, nothing. We're both of us are developing our ideas as well. Like, and like two blunt rocks, we'll bang off each other and sharpen each other up. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's why it's so important to have these kind of conversations, so that not only we might hopefully share something valuable with the listener, but we'd also refine our own ideas and potentially improve our quality of life. Like, I know now I'm a hell of a lot more informed with regards, obviously not only your life, but the lives of other people who are going to share similar perspectives to you. I have that kind of informed mind, a more informed insight into what the human condition is, and that's the fucking point of the podcast, is having lots of people's different stories, so I can get a fuller picture of the human condition, and hopefully I can bring the guests and the listeners along with me to get a greater insight into what goes on in our shared emotional worlds. Do you know what I mean? And then finally, on a lighter note, if you feel inclined, our mutual friend and my cousin Des relayed a story to me about your 24-hour cycle.
And
whole idea of having nothing to hide, could you share the story in relation to the cream that you had to use, and maybe how many tubs that you had to use as well?
I didn't use more than one tub in the race, but in the lead up to the race I did. So I used to, as anyone who does endurance cycling and will know, you can get a very uncomfortable arse from sitting on the bike the whole time. And so I was doing the 24-hour cycle. I went to a shop in Dublin, and I was getting a couple of things for the bike, like lights and a few things for the bike. And I was just making small talk with the shop owner, and he was like, yeah, you have a race coming up, and I was like, yeah. It was my first cycle race actually. Funnily enough, the 24-hour cycle. Like, yeah, my first cycling race actually. I've done a few triathlons and never just cycling race, so I get a few things for it. He's like, oh yeah, what distance is it? I said, oh well, it's a time trial. It's not actually distance. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, it's a 24-hour cycle. You just do as much as you can in 24 hours. And he was like, oh Jesus, right, fuck. And he was like, here, and he, being sound, just kind of gave me a few things to use for free. So he gave me this cream, and he was like, this is just rub this everywhere before you start, because it'll help you and it'll numb the pain or whatever. And this is a few weeks before the race. And I used to, the first day I used it, it worked a charm. So anytime I got in the bike, I used to just use tubs of, not tubs, but loads of it in a tub, and just rub it everywhere. Fucking everywhere it used to be rubbed, like behind the knees, fucking everywhere. And then for the cycle itself, I got through, every 2 hours I was topping up with it. But then it got to about 16 hours in, I had 8 hours left, and I just went to take more, and it was just all gone. I was just like, oh, fuck's sake, man. I didn't even, you probably only need it fucking twice, once every 10 hours would be enough for you, not every couple hours. But I put it on then, I didn't have any put on for the last 7 or 8 hours. And the next day after the race, now this is probably, with or without the cream, this might have happened, but I had bruising on my arse, just in the two cheeks, one cheek each. I had 2 bruises, and I couldn't sit down for a couple of days because it was just so sore. Yeah, that's what fucking a 24-hour cycle do. They just fuck you up. But but that's what Des is probably coming from, with the empty tubs of arse.
Yeah, well, the Des version of the story is that you went through, like, 7 tubes of arse cream, and you just couldn't get enough of it, like.
But the stuff.
yeah. But still funny nonetheless. Listen, Ferdia, this podcast has been all about you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As mentioned in previous episodes, please get in touch with me with any feedback you might have, any ideas for guests. If you'd like to come on, I'd love to hear from you. If you have any suggestions for how I could improve the podcast, I really, really do want to hear from you. So just shoot me a message on Facebook or on Instagram, or I'm on Twitter as well. You can find me at YEW on the different platforms. All About You on Instagram, at YouFace on Twitter, and at You on Facebook. Thank you very much for listening, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast and all the different podcast apps, and we're available on YouTube also if you find that handier to use.